So, good evening, one and all. Our speaker has already joined with us, Dr. D.D. Patnaik. He is an author, and today he will speak on decolonizing Indian mind towards political theory of Indian nation. In fact, this particular topic is very close to his heart and mind. In fact, it is his specialization. He has written a book on it, and that book is available on the Amazon. Now, as the convener, I am supposed to introduce the speaker and I am supposed to introduce the topic. So I will do the second part, and for the first part, introducing the speaker, I requested Sanjay Meher, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Berhampur University, to introduce the speaker. So may I request Sanjay to introduce the speaker?
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to introduce today's speaker. Professor Moderetor Patnaik, popularly known as D.D. Patnaik, has completed his masters from Utkal University and PhD and D.Litt from Sambalpur University. He has 35 years of teaching and research experience, and he retired as associate professor cum principal. His area of specializations are cultural nationalism in particular and Indian political thought in general. His research contributions are, besides his own PhD and postdoctorate work, he has guided 4 PhD scholars. He was a senior fellow at Indian Council of Social Science Research. He was an associate fellow at IIAS Simla, and he has completed a minor research project of UGC. He has n number of publications. His important publications are Hindu Nationalism in India, Cultural Nationalism in Indian Perspective, Political Philosophy of Subhash Chandra Bose, Gandhi and Decentralization, Insight of Sarvodaya, Sanskrit Rashtrabad, Swami Vivekanand, Aspiration of Vivekananda and Mission of RSS, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, etc. He was also the member of
Indian Council of Social.
yes, Indian Council of Social Science Research from 2017 to 2020. He is also a member of Board of Governors of Navakrishna Chaudhary Center of Developing Studies, Bhubaneswar. He was also a state president of Bharatiya Shikshan Mandal. So, Professor D.D. Patnaik is well known in the academic and intellectual circle of the country as a scholar who has massive contributions in the area of cultural nationalism, Indian political thought, freedom struggle, and the allied subject. He has wrote a number of books for the degree classes. So I personally read his books during my graduation days. So he is a well-known and renowned professor around India. Thank you.
So thank you, Sanjay, for this introduction. In fact, the request to invite Dr. D.D. Patnaik was from our students. And you are right, actually. You people, you and Tapan, both one day you told me that, sir, we have read the book by D.D. Patnaik. So it will be better if you will, invite him and we can directly listen to the author. And when I requested Dr. D.D. Patnaik, he immediately he agreed, and he was also happy on me the way I have been conducting all these web talks. I think the most important identity of D.D. Patnaik is his interest on knowledge, and with this is an informal invitation, and he accepted that informal invitation, and this shows his academic spirit. I think knowledge should be the priority, and rest is the rest only. So the topic on which today the speaker will speak, it's decolonizing Indian mind. In fact, that point earlier Vivekananda has talked about. If you see, today's time and our existence, then you will find that I think where to start your thinking. We are already, under the impact and influence of, colonialism. Intellectually, we are not free, though politically, we are free in, 1947. Uh, but then, without decolonizing your mind, you cannot start your own thinking. Otherwise, you will be trapped in you will trapped with colonial, understanding. In fact, India has lost its originality since the, mass destruction of Nalanda University, and what is today known as the Bhakti movement was to need and continue the spiritual heritage of India. The Islamic invasion was reinforced by sword, but the English occupation of India was coupled with, uh, you know, assiduous bid to denationalize the Indians from their own soil. The left liberal axis, ingrained during the latter phase of colonialism, entirely internalized the colonial conspiracy or conspiracy theory and butterflies it. Though India was decolonized in 1947 politically, but it was yet to decolonized intellectually. Till now, colonial superstructures are still there. Hence, decolonizing Indian mind is the only way to establish a political theory of Indian nation. So this is something, the speaker, he has sent it to me. I just read it out. But the important thing that important aspect of today's talk is that if you want to develop a political theory for Indian nation state, then you cannot do it without decolonizing your, mind. So how to decolonize your mind? What are the difficulties while decolonizing our mind? What is the importance of decolonizing our mind, and how to develop a political theory after decolonizing our mind? These are the questions that is there in our mind. So we hope that Dr. Patnaik will unpack everything, and at the end of his deliberation, we will be clear about this decolonizing, Indian mind. So, with this introduction, I once again welcome and thankful to Dr. D.D. Patnaik, and I request him to start his deliberation on this topic. Yes, sir, you can start right now.
Okay. Good evening to all of you. So first of all, I am very thankful to Dr. Mishra, who has organized this kind of your intellectual come academic work. This is not a very easy thing, but a very rare one, in fact, and thanks goes to him. At the outset, I beg your apology. So delivering lecture is a matter of your practice. So I have lost this practice. Very often I get opportunity to speak, it is okay. But now I'm 71 years of age. So you can just imagine. So in case of any difficulty, so far as this is a technical difficulty concern, you may interrupt if at all there would be any difficulty. So now I begin. So what I would have spoken in the introduction, it has already been spoken out by Dr. Mishra, that Britishers not only occupied Indian territory, but also occupied Indian mind. So we are politically decolonized in 1947, but not intellectually and academically. There lies, in fact, it is so elusively we are imprisoned. Even you do not feel it, and we feel whatever we are studying, however, whatever we are reacting, it is just natural. So what a lot of Macaulay had visualized in the year 1833 is yet active till now. Anyway, so it begins like it. Sir William Jones, the founder of Asiatic Society in Calcutta in 1784, He was the law member of the Viceroy. He was interested in Sanskrit, that is okay. But his objective was it was very full of your predilections. He was imprisoned with your biblical dogma. Just for example, before the advent of your Adam and Eve, in 4004 BC, there would not have been any kind of your creation. So everything, it must be within the parameter of your biblical dogma. So what he spoke, as for example, Manu was Adam and his son and his son. So in this way, his son Noah. So variously he called that both father and son, he called both of them Manu. Then Noah had 3 sons. So far as the eldest was known as Ham. So once Ham had a chance glance to naked body of his father. So his father cursed him that you must be a slave in future. Then in the year 2349 BC, there was a fierce deluge. And as a result of it, that means his grandson, he became a slave. So this slavery system started, and his descendants become the Aryans. That descendants become the Aryans who came down to India. So this theory he built up and erected. And you mark one thing, there was no basis, no reference, there was no foundation in fact. So without any foundation, without any, that means your documentary evidence or anything else, out of the conjecture, he developed all these things. But his, that means the teachings became your subject matter of reference for the Indian students. So not only him, so that means so far as Ramayana, Mahabharata, different characters, gods and goddesses of the Hindus, he projected in that way. That means he said that it was, that means Greek, that means dramas, Greek systems, Greek mythology, they were the origin. So he started that Indian knowledge originated from Greece and neighboring countries, and it was for the Genesis. So I don't like to prolong this matter. This is by itself is a very vast subject. Just I am touching 1, 2, 3 points, then I will come forward. Otherwise, so far as this vast complex problem could not be put forward further. Then next, there was a J.G. Heder, another German. So he developed that. So far as he developed that means the phrase Indo-German theory developed. That means the Indians, genesis of the Indians were Germans. So Indo-German, he also put emphasis on your language factor. That your European classics, particularly Latin and Greek, that means Sanskrit derived from Genesis to Greek and Latin. So this was it, that means he argued this way. Then your Adolphe Picquet, he was a jurist of your, that means your Switzerland. So he stated that no. So far as he developed your race theory. Then J.A., that means Gobineau, one French diplomat. Very often the Indian students they refer to him that he was a great, that means Indologist. He was a great, that means admirer of India. But you see how they were that was subjected to predilection. So he developed this race theory, German race theory. That means, and he stated that Christian church, it was that means Genesis. You mark one thing. So Christian church, when the Christian church became the Genesis, and they developed that anthropological study of that means India, how they would have developed. I suppose you get just the inkling. These are the inkling. This is not the full story. So there are so many books I can give you reference for this study. So in this way they developed. And you see, all the students of political science, they refer to your George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel, all of us know, idealist thinker. He had authored Philosophy of History. In Philosophy of History, he had envisioned India from a very myopic point of view. He referred to Devadasi system. He envisioned different temples where your option, that means art and architectures are being made. And he deduced a conclusion out of it that they are not very civilized, that means society. Then after 150 years, Karl Marx, who is regarded as the most progressive person of human being to the leftist, he also stated that means this is a very, so far the Hindus are concerned, not India, Hindus are concerned, these are somewhat of your inferior civilization. He articulated that way. And he felt that it is better that the British rule is there. And he stated that British rule is somewhat better or superior to your Islamic rule. This was his comment in 1852. So in this way, these people articulated. So now I will come to Max Muller just after a couple of minutes. So next you see, by the beginning of your, that means British rule, direct British rule, in the year 1816, Indian history was ruled by James Mill. James Mill is also very familiar name to the students of political science, the veteran liberal or utilitarian. So he wrote down 3 voluminous volumes regarding your Indian history: ancient India, medieval India, and modern India. By modern India, I mean British India. Medieval India, by mean Islamic India. And the first ancient is, you can say, Hindu India, and it was, that means stated, it is full of your myths and different kinds of your legends. So he dismissed in one way. That was not so very much enlightened. But they became the textbook all over the world. Textbook all over the world. And after 1 decade, that means second edition was published. So that British India wrote by him is supposed to our established history of India. So I won't name any person or any university. So those who are mainstream, that means authors on your ancient India or Indian history, they refer to James Mill. Then you see, in the year 1811, your Colonel Boden, one gentleman, Colonel Boden, he was an issueless person, ex-military person, but he was a very wealthy person. So he donated all his money. In this sense, they were devoted people. He devoted all his money to Oxford University to constitute one, that means your Oriental Center for Oriental Studies. For a Sanskrit would be, that means taught. But his objective was that your Christian literatures would be translated into Sanskrit so that it could be spread in India and elsewhere. It was his objective. But anyway, it continued. This was another beginning. Now, come Lord Macaulay. I'm just touching different points, not explaining everything else, because it would be totally confused if at all I go through one aspect in minute details. So far as in 1832, so far as your Lord Macaulay's contributions are concerned, everybody is aware of it. He just, whenever we come to your system of education, we refer to Lord Macaulay. It is right. During his days, not a beggar was there in India. During his days, Panchayat Raj system was active in India. During his days, there were a large number of your schools were there, informal schools, you may say. But anyway, he studied that as Indian people are so much that he got astonished because of one thing, that after 800 years of your Islamic rule, yet in villages, yet in states, in remote corners of this country, the ancient Indian society, what it means, the Hindu society, yet alive. So unless you, that means, smash or jettison this kind of your ancient your culture, heritage, religion, or mindset, and set the mindset as we dictate, there cannot be any change. So everybody knows that by blood and color they would remain Indian, but in their taste, opinion, and that means everything else, they would remain British. It was what is the objective. According to his scheme, Wood's Dispatch, William Jones, Wood's Dispatch came up in the year 1854. That means English education in India, compulsory English education in India. In all these government and aided schools and colleges, there would be. So it was not only the language factor. Had there been only language factor, there would not be any difficulty. But what they did by means of that, they started that Europe is the genesis of all kinds of your human knowledge. In every branch of knowledge, it may be natural science, social science, everything else. So we are ingrained with it. We are reinforced with it. That knowledge, that means it is the monopoly of that means Europe, it originated. And according to that means we that means develop ourselves. And accordingly, your schools, universities were established. So after 30 years by the year 1893, Swami Vivekananda reacted that in the last 30 years, in 3 presidencies, 3 universities were constituted. And what is the outcome? An average, that means a graduate produced in this university or postgraduate, he feels that his grandfather was a fool. His great-grandfather was, that means, uncivilized, barbarous. In this way, that means he tries to hate himself. And you see, the first product of your this kind of your education, the product of your education were the leaders of or the founders of Indian National Congress in 1885. So begin with Dada Bhai Naroji were the first product. Then everybody, those ICS persons, so everybody, those who that means visited England and qualified there for ICS or Bharat law. So out of your 72 delegates, almost all of them were English educated. Newly that was emerging middle class people, they were that was English educated, and you see their test. So Lord Macaulay was successful within a generation. So what was the slogan in the foundation, on the foundation day of the Indian National Congress on 28th December 1885? Long live Queen Victoria. Not Vande Mataram, not Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Long live Queen Victoria. It was their mindset. So these people thought, contemplated that we can, that means rise above only at par with, that means mapping and measuring with the, that means European counterparts. As that means it was the yardstick of your civilization or matter, and we must follow them in this way. So they appreciated the British sense of justice and fair play. They had a full faith on that means Britishers. That you see the lecture of your Gopal Krishna Gokhale in the Servants of India Society, that British rule in India is the inscrutable wisdom of providence. Inscrutable wisdom of providence, Niyatir Vidhan. So God given, that means. So they were very much thankful that British rule is there. So the objective of Indian National Congress was not to remove the Britishers from this soil, but to strengthen them. In fact, what they sought was only reform, economic reform, political reform, different kinds of reform. They must express their grievances before them in a that means a peaceful and constitutional way. And there was a legitimate and constitutional government in India. They hastened to believe that there was a legitimate and constitutional government in India. So Indian mind was that means completely occupied by the Britishers. So these people, they found that this was they will call the liberals. Because liberals in the sense, by the 1891, when Bal Gangadhar Tilak joined Indian National Congress in 1890, that was Lal, Bal, Pal, these people all of them, they were known as the extremists. So extremists, his friend, in fact, in the Age of Consent Bill, 1892, he wrote a very, that was in the Kesari, he wrote a very strong article against it. So his friend, in fact, it is an extremist measure. So if it is extremist measure, they were known as the extremists, and the other side was known as moderates. Constitutional approach of that means to the British government. So these liberals continued. That means the process of denationalization was complete by the advent of your 20th century. When Mahatma Gandhi arrived here, well, he talked about your Swaraj, Sarvodaya, Swadeshi, this meant that means Indian nomenclatures, veritable Indian or the nomenclatures were being employed. His methods was different, yet his thoughts became that means, for example, his most obedient that means Jawaharlal Nehru. What was the background of Jawaharlal Nehru? He was completely Anglicized. He had no knowledge in Sanskrit. He studied India. He discovered India from your Western perspective. In whatever way he envisioned that way. So I will come to this point later. Now let us come to Max Muller. With that same, your Macaulay's scheme, what happened? Max Muller, one German philosopher, German scholar, was placed in the School of Oriental Study. In the 1848, he wrote that means a long article. It was published. So what was that article? That he pointed out that, for example, Pitru, Matru, this was Bhratru, he pointed out several Sanskrit words, and he thought that they are akin to your, that means Latin and Greek. So that means so not only this language factor, it was not a philological study only, but he stated that so far as the Aryan race were concerned, their genesis was that means somebody said East Europe, somebody called German. So that is why Vivekananda laughed at them. If the author is a German, he said that it was German. You see, in 1871 onwards, after your unification of Italy and unification of Germany and France, they became that means you can say contestants. They were the that means contestants. In that contest, so far as France was concerned, it had that means made its depart in your enlightenment. So it represented the continental civilization. So the Germans came up said that our concept, that means Aryans, we the Aryans civilized one. So they placed in such a way, and they employed a swastika chinna in such a way, that means the Aryans belong to them. So it was their contest. There is no problem. So anyway, So Vivekananda laughed at that. That means ridiculed this kind of your Aryan invasion theory in any way. So in Aryan invasion theory, what happened? You see, so far as this theory is concerned, it got that means credence only mid 19th century. Earlier, so far as our 5,000 years of that means our civilization and history, if you begin with the Rig Veda, there is no reference, nothing else, no question that the Aryans, Aryan was first of it is not a race. It's a quality. You are an Aryan means you are a qualified people, a noble person. So this Aryan became a race, and this race theory, my immigration or invasion theory came up only in mid 18th century. So there is no evidence of it. You see, for your reference, you go through your who are the Sutras, how the four Varna came by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, published in 1848. She had a question, she had demanded evidence before it. What is the evidence of it? There is, without any evidence, without any reference, it was better. So in fact, in a book that means your Aryan invasion theory in Indian nationalism, your M.S. Telagiri, published in 1993, because of this book he got a Harvard Fellowship, that there are 20 principal languages of the world, where there are so many words which are common, almost common, so far as your phonetics is concerned. So it doesn't mean that who moved from which place. So even if there is, let us suppose, certain common words in Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit, does it mean that the Aryans had come from their land? It might have been just the reverse. It might have been just the reverse. It is not the same thing. So with this theory, it continued. So the language factor became the evidence of your that was race migration theory. So anyway, of late there have been large numbers of that research work on this. It has been ridiculous, in fact. But even if you talk of your global community, in the year 1999 at Los Angeles, and in the 2007 at Atlanta, there were two international congregations on this question: Aryan invasion theory and Saraswati River civilization. And it was founded, that means Aryan invasion theory was a myth, it was simply conjecture. Even BBC London in the 2002, it had also conducted a seminar, and it was the conclusion. So not only the Indians, but the foreign authors, so many authors have also, can give you different references. It is conclusive now. So what happened because of this Aryan invasion theory? That the Muslims came from outside, Britishers came from outside, so Hindus had also come from outside. So this is what the narrative or picture regarding the that means India before, or the Hindus before the world. So it was the genesis, it was the conspiracy theory and nothing else. I can speak on more because this is could be a special subject matter, but I'm not going to more. Then according to this, there are your Risland gets your census in the year 1901 to 1911. In this census, what happened? Risland gets what they did. They divided the entire Indian community into 7 ethnic groups. 7 ethnic groups, and everybody that was arriving from somebody from Mongolia, somebody from Germany, East Asia, different person. Iranian, different ways. That was nobody's original India. And what recently divided the Indian society into innumerable ethnic groups, ethnic castes, ethnic that means communities. And in the book he wrote, Herbert Risley, in his book People of India, in the introduction, in the preface, he himself has written that all this I have established out of the existing society, studied the existing society, and out of this observation I arrived this conclusion. That means there is no reference of it, there is no evidence of it, and nothing else. Simply on nasal index, he came to the conclusion. For a nasal index in anthropology, that means it is not scientific. And we follow all these, that means everything in this way. So it continued this way. So Max Muller, you see, I'm not going to Max Muller more. What happened? He translated the Vedas and the Upanishad, helped by your Dawson, Paul Dawson, another that is associate. But as Ambedkar stated, both Max Muller and Dawson were too small in comparison to the wavelength of your British Empire. So they were only serving the British end. What the Britishers wanted, they was articulated. He was in very need of money. His wife and his sisters were suffering from very they were suffering very, that was peculiar kind of diseases. He wanted money, and on per basis he was earning lakhs of pounds every month. So it is a different story, but you see, If you want that means a reference from me, you see what he had written to his wife, which was posthumously that means published in the year 1902. He passed away in 1900. It reads, it is a small passage, just I read it. My translation of the Vedas and my current edition of Rig Veda should go a long way in molding the destiny of India. In the years to come, the Vedas constitute the foundation of their faith. I am dead certain to reveal to them that the foundation I lay is the only way of uprooting all the things to which they gave rise during the last 3,000 years of their existence. During his time, it was 3,000. He stated that Rig Veda was composed in between 1200 to 1500 BC. But you see, when Mohenjo-daro and was excavated, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, by your 1922-23, what happened? It determined that Indus Valley civilization is 3000 BC. So Indian history was 5,000 years. Now Saraswati River civilization has been unearthed. Now our history goes back, that means 2000 more, that means 5000 BC, 7,000 years of history. Established in fact, all evidences have been there. Now, very small minor thing, 6 Brahmins from Banaras were lifted to Oxford, who had working knowledge in English, to cooperate, that means Maxwell and Dawson. Out of these 6 Brahmins, 2 converted into Christianity at the end of their work. So mark what kind of Shastris they were and what they would have, that means, briefed them. Well, now this is over. So this was what the scenario by the beginning of your, that means, 20th century, 19th century and 20th century. Now, so far as Jawaharlal Nehru, he was, that means, he completely discovered India from that perspective. So when I talk about the liberals, so Congress moderates via Jawaharlal Nehru, that means this liberal. Then your leftism came after your 1920 onwards. During those days, what happened? The Indian students who were studying outside were very much, that means, impressed with your transformation in the Soviet Union. Massive transformation. They were impressed with it. During those days, they felt that this leftism is very much progressive. This can lead humanity to a different angle. So some Indian students were also impressed with it. At the beginning, Subhash Chandra Bose also got impressed. And Jawaharlal Nehru was also impressed. Jayaprakash Narayan also got impressed. So Communist Party was founded by M.N. Roy. Not M.N. Roy exactly. First it was founded in the Second International in Soviet Union, Kremlin, in the year 1924. And Joseph Stalin inaugurated it. Communist Party of India was inaugurated by Joseph Stalin in Kremlin in the year 1924. Then it came to India. And M.N. Roy was monitoring it. He was in charge of your Oriental studies. So what happened? So far as this communism is concerned, they ridiculed anything your religious. That means they had no respect for your Hinduism, no respect for any religion, no dharma, karma, anything else. They were agnostics. So there are a community of views with Marxism, this communism, and Jawaharlal Nehru. He was also pagan, an agnostic, non-believer. So they were dialectical materialism. So far as the communism is concerned, then I am again skipping that Rajani Datta, who founded the Communist Party in England. Earlier he was a journalist, and he became the author, and also he was an activist. He authored India Today in the year 1944. By the time Discovery of India was published in 1945. In the India Today, what he wrote, that this country, that means, composed of a myriad, that means, nationalities, so many nationalities. This was not one nation, it was nationalities. And what we are going to do is that means, basically there are 15 nationalities, 15 nationalities in the sense, 11 governors provinces and 4 chief commissioners provinces. So all these 15 that means provinces must be independent. So there should be 15 constituent assemblies. So irrationally, that means creation of Pakistan. So no love for your country. That means patriotism is that means nonsensical. So far as when you talk of your Indian glory, Indian system, it is all nonsensical, farcical. So they complete, that means, jettison this country. It is a civilizational standard or anything else. So the leftism emerged out of it. Who have no love for this country or its virtue, they don't find any virtue of this country. sorry. So this is your liberalism and leftism came and they rolled their roast in 1947 onwards, so far your Indian academics is concerned. So accordingly it was done. So they not only internalized the British system, but also rather they strengthened them. Then one thing, just to go back, in the year 1888, in the year 8, just I'm talking about your political science, how to decolonization. Just a few months back, there was a TV discourse. One former student leader of Delhi, he stated, "Yeah, nationalism, it is something new. It comes from Europe." So in this way, his professors have taught him what is to be done. And you see, one former vice chancellor of Odisha, I listened to his lecture. There is no India prior to advent of British. This was stated. You see this language. In the year 1888, Sir John Strachey, Secretary of State for India, addressed the students of Cambridge, and he stated, "There has been no Indian nation, nothing called India. It is only a geographical expression like Europe or Africa, and it can never be one nation." The same language we are producing even till today. Mahatma Gandhi had stated, Subhash Chandra Bose had also clarified in his work, you go through his introduction, this Indian struggle. So Gandhi had stated, India was one nation prior to the advent of Britishers. This is an ancient nation. That is why the Britishers could hold it, otherwise not. He justified in different ways. So what happened? Here again, my friend, your Dr. Mishra also used the word nation state. This nation state system, it is a Western system. In Europe, nationalism developed, cropped up in a different backdrop. You go through, that means city-state, Roman, Greek, or that means Roman is your city-state. Through city-state, you come to your Ottoman, your Holy Roman Empire. Then your Renaissance Reformation. Then that means rise of your, that means Jean Bodin and Niccolo Machiavelli, who developed your state system, that which is territorial, political, and secular. Then you come to your 1648 Treaty of, that means your Westphalia, where entire Europe was delineated into different nation states. And all of them were struggling against each other. So not only class struggle, but also that means state struggle. So that means the nation state struggle, and because of this system, First World War and Second World War cropped out. That is very right. They had to cut through competition. Nationalism in the West is very much, you can say, that is chauvinistic, jingoistic, inhuman, narrow, and everything else. Indian nationalism is not political nationalism. This is cultural nationalism. So first here, Indian society came up here. Indian society was developed. And in course of time, all the features of a nation, that means they have a culture, some kind of heritage they developed, tradition they developed, all these things developed. A language was, that means language was enriched, literature was enriched, different points of honor they were established. Your heritage, that means your, what we say, that means ethos values, they were established. So we first came up as a nation, then your political system came. So ours is nation-based state. In Europe, what happened? They have state-based nation. State-based nation. So they don't have much distinction between nation and state. They use it, employ it in interchangeable way. But here what happens? But we have to consider Rashtra. So the student leader whom I refer, you might have been judging who is he. These people, even one professor had come to your Sambalpur University itself to address in the year 2009, one modern political thought, one state level seminar was organized by the political science department. You go through your record. Professor B.N. Roy of Ramjas College was invited. So Professor Ramjas, what he did, he simply laughed at Indian thought, Indian political thought, everything. And people were, even the one staff academic repressor course was going on. The assistant professors and readers were also clapping their hands. There is nothing in India. Simply they can't ignore Gandhi as a matter of courtesy. Gandhi had, of course, his contribution is liberty in and liberty at. Again, this is following, that means your Western paradigm. Anyway, left, it is okay. Similarly, Bhikkhu Parikh, Padma Bhushan, he is a very respected person. He is 90 now, of your University of Hull. In YouTube, you can find it, that means 20 pages, that means lack of a political theory in India. In India, we don't have any political theory. So at one time, he has written, India needs a Hobbes. Why should you need a Hobbes? Civil War and Leviathan, what that means in 1651, we'll go back to that. Well, in Leviathan, so far as Hobbes is concerned, he was a genius of his time. Leviathan is the first English prose. It is okay. He was accorded to the status of your father of your political theory. But why you are not becoming that, producing that? Why you are not articulating it? We don't articulate that first Indian system and simply blame. In the Constituent Assembly, one linguist, for example, Dr. B.N. Raghuveer claimed, B.N. Rao, secretary of your that means member secretary of your drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly, was moving all across the world to accumulate different your political systems, constitutional systems, what we can that means have within our system, incorporate within our system. You see, Atharva Veda, so he claimed that we could also have that means something in India with our vast experience and knowledge, wisdom, our literature in there. But at that time, it was not feasible. Those days, even during your freedom struggle, it was not done. So, still then, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he stood up and stated, I learned the values of justice, liberty, and equality. Justice, liberty, and equality from Buddhist literature, not from your French Revolution, he stated. But yet, certain values were incorporated, but not much was done. So, what I stated that I was talking about nationalism. In the Rig Veda, there is mention of Rashtra several times, almost there is a definition. That definition may not be at par with this system. But Rashtra is that invasion Rashtra. In Atharva Veda, not only Rashtra is there, veneration of their motherland was there, this system was there, but what is there? It is almost a directive principle of state policy is there. So I ask now, sorry, I beg pardon to you, my throat is somewhat anyway, problem. Why politics, because Aristotle's politics, it is insulated from your Platonic ethics and metaphysics, philosophical dictum, but it's dealt with your state and government. So father of political thing. Then why not Manusmriti? Have you gone through the second part of your Manusmriti? First part deals with your society, the social family system, where Varna system is there. Second part is exclusively devoted. There are 26 and odd slokas, around half of them deals with your state and government. State became imperative later on to discipline the society. Even if there was that Rashtra was there, a civil society was there. So we had a civil society, then your state came up. So everything is there. Then so far as Niccolo Machiavelli is the father of modern political thought. Why not Kautilya, Arthashastra, which is much more superior to, in fact, your Machiavelli's prince? You see, Max Muller, 1 year before his death, he had stated, the exclusive contribution of India is metaphysics. Exclusive contribution of metaphysics. But you see, during your colonial rule, that means your Woods dispatch, we were given to understand that Europe is the center of all knowledge. Even Professor Lyall had written the foreword of the book, The Indian Unrest of your Valentine Chirol. And in that book, what he had written with the foreword? The entire knowledge of Asia, cumulative knowledge of Asia, is not equivalent to one library self, one single library self of Europe. A university degree of Oxford and your sacrifice in your Kali temple, bloody sacrifice of your Kali temple. I mean, what he meant, all of you understand. So in this way, they ridiculed. But so far as social science is concerned, so far as natural science is concerned, including your metallurgy, chemistry, in even your medicine. I can give evidence of you. I have devoted a very long chapter in that book, Cultural Indian Perspective. You can get the inkling. So India had that first knowledge in different areas. We are oblivious of it. We forgot it. And what we try to understand, because of them, you see, there is one NASA Canagola department in Italy, in one hospital. NASA Canagola, ENT department, what you said in our hospitals. ENT department known as NASA Canagola. So many evidences are in every area. We forgot it. So far as Max Muller is concerned, he did not read Kautilya's Arthashastra. Kautilya's Arthashastra was rediscovered in the year 1905 by Sam Perishastri of Kerala. Right from your devastation of your Nalanda University, it had lost into that oblivion. And this Kautilya's Arthashastra got a English translation was published in the year 1915. That so many PhD theses all over the world emerged, comparing both Kautilya's Arthashastra and your Machiavelli's Prince. So your Kautilya's Arthashastra, you see, how many departments were there? Your 7 elements of the state. In Manusmriti also there are 7 elements of state. So many that means organization, centralization, decentralization, this thing, that thing, everything. So these people, municipal corporations, that means your system. Then so far your Sukraniti is concerned, that is the first lexicon, that is the first work in the lexicon of economics. First work in the lexicon of economics. All labor, logic systems, whatever in modern times, you read in economics, all principles. It's Genesis in Sukraniti. We forgot all those things. So what happened? Even Bhandarkar, J.J. Bhandarkar, he was a great soul of 19th century, Maharashtra. Your Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute there in Pune, you can see. He had articulated one political theory of India. So he confined himself to your ancient India. Then your different Beni Prasad book you might have read in political theory. He authored Political Theory of Ancient India. It was a great contribution so far as Beni Prasad was there, so far as Indian political science is concerned. But he confined it to that. So many works, even C.P. Bhamri has also written regarding your ancient political theory. So they have confined to ancient. So we think that it is ancient. So right from ancient to present day, even your Gupta era, this era, that era, the Janapadas were there, these were there, that were there, centralization, decentralization, federal system, monarchical system, constitutional system, even Montesquieu had learned as many as 36 constitutional systems from India. So why not to articulate those things in a different way? So for even you see, I just drop out different Lord Palmerston. I had to give him some as a matter of illustration. Let us drop out. Now the time is taking up. I will try to. So far as Indian systems are concerned, you see what happened. The political science department came into vogue. Political science department came into vogue in Lucknow University in 1923. In 1925, Professor Harold J. Lasky's A Grammar of Politics was published. So we thought, our people throughout that means for a generation, that means the Bible of your political sensitivity, everything. I don't ridicule Professor Harold J. Lasky was great. A Grammar of Politics is commendable, it is okay. But you see our mindset. Then in post-colonial India, what happened? David Easton series your behavioralism came. We said that no, this behavioralism is the right approach to your political, for the study of your political science. Then your post-behavioralism came, adding that to the value aspect. Then we said, yes, we are telling so value must be added. It should not be so much mechanical. Then your Martin Kaplan's, your system theory, all this came. Then postmodernism came up, and when it came up, after the collapse of your Soviet Union in 1991, it suddenly surfaced in Jawaharlal Nehru University. Whereas Michael Foucault had articulated this postmodernism in 1944. So he articulated it from European Western perspective. That how there have been different organs of the state, it has become exploitative. It has that means marginalizing the liberty of the individual, civil liberty and everything else. In this way, that means the marginalized groups must be that means strengthened. It was what is the objective. And he tried to, that means our knowledge, existing knowledge must be that means revised. And after 20 years, in 1964, Herbert Marcuse wrote on one-dimensional man, for which he earned the Nobel Prize for Literature. One-dimensional man, Herbert Marcuse. So a kind of a new leftism had emerged in Europe. So Herbert Marcuse, Camus, so all the Camus, Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, all these people. So what he had done is that all existing systems must be jeopardized completely. There must be complete overall. So this knowledge came to us 30, 40 years later. So what we are going to do, even you say behavioral study, what we are going to do? We say that there's an ethnic group of a very, not only district, but one particular panchayat. This aspect, so let us divide India into 1 million part. What is the objective of our study? What is our conceptual framework? So without an objective, we are undertaking work. So all these things, what I study, only your methodology. So methodology is only the means, that is not the end. Then sociology has become so much that's a fun with the students of politics. It should be. But what is sociology? We are that means exploring. The systems or the principles devised in the West. Our systems are completely different. Have we tried to that means understand the Indian society? I gave you just 2, 3 very small examples. We belong to the society. We envision it. Sorry, we feel it. We sense it, but not envisioning it. We are not putting it in proper perspective. For example, you see one thing. India has only 16,000 police stations in a rural area. Rural area. I am not talking about Delhi. In Delhi also there is not much that much your police system, security system was there. When I was an undergraduate student, I had gone to Delhi for the first time in 1969. I moved through that means within the premise of your parliament, I just passed up. No problem. Only after assassination of your Indira Gandhi, your Khalistan, that means militancy, Kashmir militancy in 1989, this security system became overwhelming. 16,000 police stations for the whole rural India, 6 lakh villages. Western people can't think of it. Please note down this point. 16,000 police stations, only 16,000 police stations for 6 lakh villages. Can you imagine? Our society is not governed by police. They don't depend for it. Whole society that means enlightened. When a girl comes out of her village and comes out of her residence in a village, whole society that means they live. You can't find it. This is very much strength. You see, when WTO was there, I was in Allen College, Jharsuguda. WTO was formed in 1995. We were thinking that countries like developing countries like India would be at the receiving end if we gone through the World Trade Organization. But what happened? After just 11, 12 years. First of all, America was at the receiving end. Its system collapsed, Citibank collapsed. There was your real monetary, for example. There was no money in any bank. So what is the reason? 25 crore, less than 25 crore of people, they are having credit card of 110 crore credit cards. They don't have that thinking regarding the future of their family. Family system is so. 2 wives, 3 wives, divorce. This one child belongs to this wife, another child belongs to that wife. Very peculiar family system. They don't think of that. In India, what happens? Even that means lady labor. She is also that means keeping some amount of money in her hand for the future of them. This is empirical, you see. In our family also, the domestic servant have gone through them. They wanted that. So now accounts have been opened up. So now in that marginally section, 150, that's 1,50,000 rupees are there, and there that means of their account now. So in India, it was not the crunch impact. There is no, that means money crunch. So far as India also suffered to some certain extent. There are unemployment, particularly in the IT sector, in different sectors we felt so, but not to that extent. Another example. Another example. Well, in this example, when I am now at Bangalore, in the year 2012, there was a seminar here at Bangalore. Out of curiosity I had gone, it was basically done by the economics department. One economics professor read out a very interesting paper. This is just empirical study. In India, what happens so far as our family system is concerned, right from that was different hierarchical system, that so far as your strong family system, joint family system, this problem is not there. I derive another point from this particular point. You know, let us suppose Indian population is now 130 crores. 130 crores of Indian population. You know, all of them are completely self-sufficient, financially, everything else. Nobody is depending on anybody else. Very much derived. Even in my family, for example, my young brother passed away in 2015, leaving behind 2 daughters in GM college and his young wife. No source of income. How is he managed? So those who are deprived, how you say many of you must have your, that means home at your rural area. You recall it. So many people don't have any source of income, but how do they manage? They manage in the society. In case of West, what would happen? Those who are unable to, that means, manage themselves, they would have come to road. Out of 130 crores, you see, around 30 crores would have come to road and seeking the social justice from the government, social, that means cooperation from the government. It is not done here. So many areas are there in our society. Our society also some strength in spite of poverty and illiteracy, whatever you say. For example, this caste system, because of this caste system, you see, the society that means continue till today. Otherwise, everybody would have been Muslims now, like Syria, Afghanistan, or anything else. What do you think? In spite of different, that means. So anyway, so far as political theory is concerned, you see, how to evolve it? So you see, you know, Rajiv Bhargav, all of you know, Dr. Mishra must be his student. He's a very good man, excellent man. There is no problem. 3 decades back, around 30 years back, I had undergone one refresher course at Jawaharlal Nehru University, out of course, to come across them. I think in 1993. Rajiv Bhargav had just come from Oxford, having with his PhD degree in political theory. He was delivering a lecture. He started political theory. Then I just queried him, could there not be political theory in this way in Indian context? So he said, political theory is a theory. How theory can be different kinds of political theory? So I replied him, you see, classical music, Western classical music, Indian classical music, Chinese classical music, they are different. All are good, commendable. He appreciated. Well, there could be different classical music, even theory could be built up in this way. Have it. This was his reply. But nobody had ever changed. So people think, what is there in India to contribute? So what is our problem? For example, in theory, what happened? For example, parliamentary system of England. Parliamentary system of England. So, anything problem, Dr. Mishra?
No, sir, we can hear you clearly. You can continue.
No, how much time I will take?
You take till you justify your topic.
No, justify no. Within 5 minutes I am concluding, then there must be certain questions cropping up in the mind of different that means scholars. I will reply to it. So, yes, for example, parliamentary system of government. It emerged out of 700 years of history of England. We accepted it. Okay, no problem. We also made certain changes. Instead of king, we had our president. Then your federal system of United States. We also incorporate. So you see, in political science department all over the country, you see, so from my student days, I feel there must be different seminars on your federalism. And what we try to do, that means put or place the American federalism in our perspective. So there lies the whole difficulty. In America, 13 colonies got independence, divided into 48 states later on, later 50. They made an agreement. They made an agreement to combine together. They become the United States of America. Even in this kind of your centripetal federation, it is a centripetal federation. There is a civil war in 1862. That is, southern state wanted to, that means go away, that means secede from the United States. What happened? Person of the stature of your Abraham Lincoln crushed it. And the Supreme Court of the United States in the 1869 in Texas versus in the Texas stated, no state can, that means venture to secede from the American Federation. Is there any agreement of Indian states, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Bengal, anything else? Has anybody learned? India is one civilization, right from beginning. So there are monarchs. So, but there were independence, that means autonomy of different areas, localities, Janapadas, different provinces, different kingdoms. There is no problem. So many people say, where are 600 kingdoms here after during your independence? So how there it was a one nation? A nation was one. That was our perception was one regarding the Bharat Varsha, the very concept of Bharat Varsha. It was one. Though we are different people, different systems. You see, in your book Indica, so there your what has written that, for example, during your ancient times, during your Gupta before Christ, in that book Indica it has been written. What happened? Even a common man, all were common men during the university degree holder, had a certain idea regarding the geography of India. This was a vast land, darkness, no electricity, no communication, nothing else. But how he came to it? He came to it through Ramayana and Mahabharata. Different places, different rivers, different things, and yet veneration for everything else. So even if a person in your village also, he recalls in a very that ugly pot he might be taking bath. What recalls? He recalls Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati, Kaveri, Godavari. He recalls. Even he might not have gone beyond his district. So this kind of system was there right from beginning. We try to, that means marginalize these factors, or that means overlook these factors. So India, with the feeling towards, you see Kharavela, for example, India, that is Odisha, the greatest emperor of Odisha, from Ganga to Godavari had territory. So you see, beside Ayodhya, one Greek garrison was yet there till your 1st century. Kharavela went there along with our Andhra king and removed them out. So what made Kharavela to go near your Ayodhya and remove him? So this was one nation, Bharatvarsha. So everybody had allegiance towards Bharatvarsha. All the kings, all the monarchs. So this was one nation. So our concerned nation is different. So what we suffer from subterfuge. Subterfuge, what happens? We use European words. And we suffer from this kind of suffering is there. Nation state, this is a nation state. Even day before yesterday, Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate, get started because some NGO had been, that Setalban. What is her name? She has been imprisoned, arrested. Indian nation has collapsed, he stated. Indian nation of 7,000 years collapsed. So he should have used the word, rule of law has collapsed, or Indian administration has collapsed, or different words, Indian political system has collapsed. What Indian nation? When there is a particular Indian nation, that means when a bridge is inaugurated, Indian nation, building nation, not by your motors, not by your tangible things, a nation is built up. Nation is like a river. State is like a canal. River is that means natural. Canal is artificial, man-made. So you can move this different way. So far as your river is concerned, it is just like a stream, river of Ganges. So there is always a mainstream. Different cultures may be there, but mainstream is there. Different rivers may merge with it. It's different thing. We have autonomy. Nobody says that Sambalpuri language is bad or it should be. So there is appreciation for it. So all the languages, all the cultures, all the systems, they are appreciated by ours is an inclusive society. Inclusive society. So the very secularism is there fundamentally in our blood. To pay respect to that means all. It is inclusive. There is no religious discrimination in India. India was never a theocratic state. Even in its heyday, what others are teaching us. But you employ the word secularism. Secularism, the genesis of secularism is the Renaissance Reformation, when they wanted to insulate the church from the state. Church is supposed to do it, your eternal, that means after the world. So far as that means state function concerned, this is within the state, within, that means the tangible world. Iha loka, para loka. So this thing they divided. It is not going to, for example, your rule of dharma. When you talk about rule of dharma rajya in case of India, people can say, what dharma, they confuse dharma with your religion. Religion is not dharma. Religion is a Semitic concept. In India, there is no concept of religion except, for example, Buddhism, you can say a religion. Jainism, one religion. Sikhism, one religion. And institutionalized religion. But still then, overall, that means we have, that means one dharma. Dharma is not religion. In Encyclopedia of Religions in 4th volume, there is no translation of dharma. So there are different significations of dharma. And very wrongly we take the dharma rajya, when we talk of dharma, religion. So once, for example, in Parliament, there is a severe, heavy discussion in the year 1973, perhaps I was in PG student. So members after member, they were shouting that it should be, that means, so the speaker, I think he was G.S. Dhillon, the speaker concluded, well, dharma should not be, that means, fused with your politics. Minu Masani stood up. Minu Masani stood up, said, sir, you sit your back, what has been written. Dharma Chakra Pravartanaya, behind this speaker. That means, moving the, that means, wheel of your dharma. That is the meaning. Supreme Court, what is its icon? Yato dharma tato jaya. Supreme Court says, joti dharma chi, seti jaya chi. Dharma, not your religion. So this is a subterfuge. You say, for example, patriotism. In West, it is called patriotism. In India, what we should say? We should say matriotism. We have motherland concept. In Atharvaveda, everything, right from your beginning to the Mother Earth. Not only you don't have your maybe idea that this is whole Earth. That is one thing. So there is no word called matriotism, only patriotism. One interesting thing, I suppose I should conclude. For example, all of you are students of political science. What you say? Middle East. Middle East, all of you understand. I also understand. Is it justified? Which area is known as the Middle East? West Asia. West Asia. You go through the globe. From European and American perspective, this West Asia is Middle East. To us, it is Middle West. To us, it is Middle West. But in our courses, there is Middle East. In the questions comes the Middle East, everybody uses Middle East. So what about our brain? Why should not we articulate? So we could also, so I don't say that we should build up something new theory. Western theory is all right. There is sovereignty of parliament, there is rule of law. In England, there is judicial supremacy in America, there is federal system, this system, that system. So many things are there. Whatever we read in political theory, I don't ridicule them. Everything is all right. But that is from Western perspective. From our perspective, it is all right. So we are not developing those things. That is the whole question. We never ponder over it. We can contribute to it. For example, their nation state system is there. We can add the Rashtra system. So it may have certain deficiency, but that deficiency is not there with your Rashtra. Rashtra is one, that's the aspect. One, for example, your the concept of Sarvodaya of Mahatma Gandhi, where he used the society is organic. Society is prior to the state. Society is prior to the nation. Individual is integral part of it, automatic part of it. So this is envisioned. The same thing is there. That means in Aurobindo said that means vast array of your literature. Vast array of, so we don't end with the nation. We move onwards. So that is not the end. It is not conflicting. Then Dindal Upadhyay's integral humanism, right from individual down to that means your whole universe. Said about your universe, talk of your whole globe, whole world. So it is that means it is integrating. So our systems would be much more beneficial to the world. In fact, it is universalistic and humanistic. So we have so many things to contribute to the world. So so I have tried to, that means, make some kind of a beginning. Some people of Delhi laughed at me. Oh, let us see what kind of theory you are evolving. It would be very peculiar words. Interesting. That's ridiculously they told me so. I replied that you should also try, you should also contribute to it. Think over it. So you relieve your mind from your colonization from the Western angle. You think that our society must be explored from only West and then we'll follow it. So that is what my inkling. I did not go to the minor details of so many things. I have left different points, in fact, even this aspect also. So if at all it is already, I have spoken for 1 hour or 2 minutes. So if you can query, we have yet 15 minutes, even 20 minutes if Dr. Mishra permits, you can continue. I will try to answer.
So thank you, Dr. Patnaik. You know, we all realize that our mind has been colonized, and decolonizing mind is not an easy task. It's very difficult. So I will come to it later. Let me deal with the political theory of Indian nation. Now, how to develop a political theory for Indian nation? When political theory means theorizing political, it's all about state. And if you see the Indian philosophers, almost all philosophers, they are, I mean, the base of their philosophy is moral, ethical, spiritual. And they, have they talked about, the state? I mean, most of them, they talked about the individual, how to get the salvation. Right. Now, in such a situation, there are many who disregard the existence of Indian political thought. For them, Indian political thought is not a thought at all. Right. So, in such a situation, how to develop a political theory you know, uh, based on our own experience? Here, political theory basically means how to develop theories relating to the state, or different theories relating to the state. And I'm coming to the past, that is decolonizing mind. I mean, to Vivekananda, this decolonizing mind is all about understanding the distinction between westernization on one hand and modernizing along western line on the other. Now, what is modernizing along western line? Now, modernizing along western line means using material and scientific aspect of modernity best exemplified by the West and continuities of indigenous tradition. And this westernization means it is all about a blind imitation to the West. So decolonizing mind means we should not imitate West blindly, but we should be alert. And what Rajiv Bhargava said, political theory is a theory. Yes, we should understand the West from a fair point of view. We should understand the politics and domination aspect of their theory, and we should not buy it. Rather, we should use what is good, I mean, what is best exemplified, by the West. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong using material and scientific aspect of the modernity. What is also the contribution of the West? There is nothing wrong. Simply the blind following, Vivekananda was, opposing it. Now,
Let me answer, otherwise I will confuse.
okay, this is the last, last point, and I told, two points, right? This is the last point. So, in the Islamic period, in the British period, in the left liberal period, you told that mind, uh, no attempt was taken to decolonize the mind. In fact, colonized mind was very good. But my question to you, this is a question that in this Modi regime, after 2014 election, I mean, what step government has taken towards this process, decolonizing, mind, and why suddenly, people like, what is his name, Aditya Nigam, right? People like Aditya Nigam, they have started thinking about decolonizing theory, decolonizing mind. What happened right now suddenly? And academia, they have started thinking, decolonizing theory or decolonizing the mind. So these are the three things I want you to give a light on these three
Thank you.
points.
For example, international law. For example, international law. Raja Rammohn Roy had conceptualized regarding your League of Nations when really League of Nations surfaced in the 20th century. 100 years earlier, he conceptualized it, Raja Rammohn Roy, but he did not develop. But we can also make a small reference to Raja Rammohn Roy. You see, Swami Vivekananda, in the year 1894, he stated regarding codification of your international law. Much before your codification of first codification of your 1899 and 1907. He had also talked of it. You see, so far as your international law is concerned, have you found in any book even of the Indian letters regarding your Anusasan Parva of Mahabharata? In Shanti Parva and Anusasan Parva of Mahabharata, we find the laws of war and laws of peace. Laws of war and laws of peace. It is there. Then so far as the tangible problems you talked about, for example, Kautilya's Arthashastra, is there anything spiritual or anything else metaphysical? Nothing. In the entire book. In the second part of your Manusmriti, you don't find so it is entire statecraft. So works are there. So many people thought they think Indian thinking means only spiritual. That is not the thing. For example, Gupta period, India had advanced so much. I cite you a small example. During Vikramaditya, an era was started. When an era was started, Vikramaditya, his advisors told that we must do something spectacular to ameliorate the problems of the people. So what they shouted, that if anybody had taken loan from anything, either from your state or in individual capacity, we'll repay the loan. It was that means addressed to the people. Not a single person came up. So there are two fallouts of it. That means nobody was lying. Had it been present day, I do not know what would happen. Nobody was lying. Second, everybody was, that means, self-sufficient. So how it came up? Without that means already the individual, the tangible aspects of the material aspects of the people were being addressed. Then we have a kind of a misconception, the role of the individual. When we talk of Aham Brahmasmin, or Aham Brahmasmin, philosophy, spiritual, Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, I am equivalent to the president of India, any individual persons of the world. Nobody that means paramount over me. No power of this universe that is superior to me. Because I am Brahmasmin. So we don't understand our philosophy, metaphysics. An individual has a supreme position. An individual has a supreme position. Then regarding our society, you see, Dr. Mishra, I am in even 10-hour lecture won't. In ancient India, for example, so far as your Vedas are concerned, it was not composed by one man. Around 200 rishis had contribution, and out of them, 26 were Brahmavadini women. I have the list of those names. I have the list of those 26 women who had contributions to Vedas. How it happened? During the Gupta period also there was complete, that was emancipation of the women. Even the princess used to also dance before the audience. So good things were there and we should inherit them. So we think that by means of your dharma, what happens, people are, what we see Syria, Iraq and Iran, and we feel that by means of religion, individually is crossed. It is their system, not our system. Here the system is completely liberal. That is why I made reference to your Aravinda system or your Sarvoda or integral Hindu of Mahatma Gandhi and Dindal Upadhyaya. Individual is a supreme position. You can develop that in theory of individual. Then I agree with you. One thing, I very much agree with you. Knowledge is a common property. Knowledge is common property. If West, you see, during entire our medieval period, when we were sleeping in the sense, whatever it might, the region might have, it is a different story. The Europeans developed in science, technology, different aspects. We must emulate them. There is no harm in it. What is harm in it? We must see modernizing. Even I did not say you that Western theory should be that was rejected. I don't say so. It should be accepted. Our system should also be highlighted. It should be insulated. It should be added. That is what I want to say. While we are accepting the West, our mind must be open. Our mind must be closed. That we mustn't suffer from some kind of inferiority complex. That everything must come up from the West, then we'll follow it. That is what they think. I suppose you agree with this point. I don't say that we should reject them. They're all right from their perspective. Or any point I left?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Discussion, debate, disagreement. This will continue. The more you read, the better you will be. I think since you have worked on this area, I think we should not argue with you until and unless we have not read it. So that will be a very fair positioning. So before I go to the questions asked by the students, let me invite my friend Pragya Parmita. Right. So she is teaching in a model degree college. So Pragya, are you there?
Yes, Himanshu, I'm right here.
Okay. So you can give your observation on this talk, and in that you can also raise your doubt or any question. Yes, Pragya, you can.
All right. Sir, thank you for that talk. I loved it. And I loved the idea of patriotism also. And I have a question for you. I've already put it in the question box. Um, it has to do with your statement when you said that. Excuse me. Yes. Yeah. You said that India is a nation based state, while the Western nations are state based nations. Could you elaborate on it kindly?
You see, it is a very vast subject, but I gave you inkling. State-based nation is the political. That is the basis of the nation. That is why Mussolini stated. Italy is state-based nation, not nation-based state. Benito Mussolini had stated. And the entire European system, nation-state system is there. Politics is that means that is the very basis. When politics becomes the basis, there must be military come up, there must be competition, everything else, all other things are marginal. In India, what happened? I stated that nation in the sense, culture, language, ethos, values, traditions, heritage, these things, solidarity, these things come up. Your humanistic values, these come up. They compose everything. That the state is that much, in fact, that is secondary. What is state? It is a machinery. State is a political contrivance. It is a machinery to govern ourselves, to that means make a peace in the society, to make different kinds of development as was for coordination. It has a limitation. So you see, I should cite one Western example so that you can understand better. With due apology, also I state so. For example, British monarch and British prime minister. So far as their positions are concerned, what are the differences? One is de jure, another is de facto. All of us understand, but there is a basic difference. British prime minister represents the British state, the political system. Present political system for 5 years or even less, even no confidence motion is passed. Understand? British prime minister represents the political system of the present day. She will deal with foreign affairs, defense, economic system, everything. What the British monarch represents? British entire panorama of your British history. Entire panorama of history is integral part of a nation. When you talk of Bharat Rashtra, there is 7,000 years of your civilizational history. Not your present problems, not your present day. Then British language, English language, English literature. Protestant Christianity, their religion, which is not we don't incorporate in India. No religion is that was incorporated that way. So he represents the British, that means collective will of the people, their systems, their heritage, their culture, their language, their history, he represents. This is the basic difference between a nation and your state. So what is the political system of the present day? But a nation, that means they come up from the beginning. We inherit our fathers, forefathers. That means there, that means blood. There, that impact is there. So society is there, a living society. That is why, in case of India, what happens? Because this is culture-based, Indian society is living today. Otherwise, what Lord Macaulay was surprised, 800 years of your Islamic rule, and you know how they were ruling over the people. But how the Indian society is there? It remains in villages, every village it is there. In our daily life, it is there. This is the basic difference for nation-based state and state-based nation.
Let me add something, Pragya.
Yeah, okay.
I think in India, the state will be successful if it will contribute towards the nation. And in the West, the nation will be successful if it is contributing towards the state. So basically, it means Indian nation, the base of Indian nationalism is cultural, and the base of Western nationalism is political, right? So fast, the intention of nationalism in West is the state. I mean, they wanted a state, that's why they designed nationalism. And our nationalism is something, by nature, I mean, it's very much cultural. It is there. It is there in the, in our ethos, blood, tradition, culture, whatever, right? And we have not designed a state, or we have not designed a nation artificially for establishing a state. So it's all about cultural base of nationalism and the political base of nationalism. Nation-based state means it's cultural based of nationalism, and state-based nation means it's political, base of nationalism. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Patnaik, and thank you, Pragya, for your question. Now let me see what are the relevant questions in the chat box. Okay, Manisha is asking, what are the problems in the ancient India? Why not ancient Indian thought developed like Western thought? Please, sir.
This is question to me.
Yeah.
Why ancient Indian thought was not developed by?
Okay, let me 1 second.
What are the I told you, regarding your, for example, right from your Sir William Jones down to others, under British colonial masters, they thought that we are white race is superior. That's why Gobineau, he articulated, I did not elaborate them. That means, all that means, virtuous civilization must have cropped up, that means from the West, from the white races. So they had the white race arrogance was there. So they didn't, that means, certify that anything beyond your Western territory, that means Europe and America, beyond that, anything would have cropped up. So in the English system of education, that means they uprooted us, delineated us, insulated us from the past. So, and the present, that means left liberal, what they say, when we talk about that means glory of the past, they say it is just legendary. There is that means no evidence of it. There is no proof of it. So they reject in this way. Whether they don't read anything, for example, outstanding professors, you can also talk to me. For example, the Rashtra is there in the Rig Veda and Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda. They don't have idea. What is to be done? When everything is there within you, Manusmriti is there, Arthashastra is there, Sukraniti is there, so something is there, so something to certain extent they know. But they don't like to study them. They said that this is legendary, everything else. They marginalize the individual. That means so far it is only spiritual. So spiritual also you can't marginalize anything else. When Hegel talks of your philosophy, when Plato talks of philosophy, you don't reject them. So it is just other aspects. But so far even the state system is concerned, international system is concerned, anything is concerned, the India has that much, so far as our experience and wisdom is concerned, our literature is concerned, so many things novel. We can that's promote those things. And you had one asked that why after 2014, these things are developed. Narendra Modi has nothing to do all this. He did not, for example, ask me to do all these things. Since 1992, I've been pursuing this thing. So many people are doing. But now people are listening. So after your collapse of Soviet Union, so far your Marxism or leftism is suffered a serious setback in global respect. So even there is neither capitalism nor that means your communism. That was the basic discourse during our student days. Communism and capitalism both collapsed down everything. like your house of cards. Now the world is emerging in different way. Now people are interested to know something. For example, one publisher from Germany, she made contact with me to contribute something that is nation and nationalism, the Indian perspective. They want to know what is there our so far as our political centricity is concerned. By nationalism means fascism, Nazism, Hitlerism, World War, racism. They know it. That is not the thing so far as Indian Rashtra is concerned. They don't learn what is to be done. So it has nothing to do with your present politics. It is so we're letting.
Manisha, I think the problem is actually twofold. The first problem is that there is a gap between the theory and practice. I mean, the theory prescribed by ancient philosophy or literature is very rich, and the practice is very parochial. That's the first. And second, why Indian thought has not been developed like Western thought. It is because Western people, they have faith in themselves. They believe themselves. But in India, our mind got colonized due to foreign ruling. That is the second problem. That's why having the rich literature philosophy in our ancient India, we were not in a position to develop it. Okay, sir, Manisha is asking.
I'm just prompted to speak one last point. Samuel Huntington, one of the greatest intellectuals of present time, he passed away in the year just 12 years back. He passed away, 13 years. He worked out in a wheelchair. He was just moving. Clash of Civilizations in 1997. That book was published. So he delegated the entire civilizations, world global civilization into 8. So Indian civilization was 1. Hindu civilization he meant. So he moved. So you see, when those people write books, they also spend crores of rupees, move to across different countries. Just like Larry, Freedom at Midnight. That Lepri. Yes, I'm just at a moment. So they move. So he wanted to move all across the country. So Chinese civilization was also there. Greek civilization was there. So he moved all these civilizations, 7 civilizations, including China. In China, even if there is a communist rule, who are supposed to be, that means anti-religious, they represented Shintoism. That was they were glorified because of their Shintoism. That it was our ancient China. He did not come to India because our here political establishment neither identify themselves with ancient India, nor your top-ranking academics which are being dominated by JNU, Delhi University, Punjab University. They did not represent. So with our political establishments, our intellectuals, academics, they don't like to identify themselves as ancient India. Rather, they glorify the invaders. Is there any country in this world who disown their own? So we have been denationalized, uprooted from our own soil. That was objective of my lecture this day. And it also in your conclusion.
Sir, Subhasri is asking, if India follow matriarchy, why all the individuals say that India have patriarchy?
Patriarchy?
Yeah.
Patriarchy. Matriarchal, this controversy would not be there. This is a matriarchal. Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, matriarchal. I told you, 26 Brahma Badhanis had contributions for your composition of Vedas. Still then you say so. If there is any lacking, we have that some kind of deficiency. We have neglected. We must appreciate it. Then in medieval period, in modern period, we did not have any kind of your introspection. Not only, but you see, so far as your civil code is concerned, a daughter has equal right along with her brothers, so far as your paternal property is concerned. Do you find this thing in any society of the world? Still then you say so. So many things are there I can argue. It is not there. It is not at all there.
Okay, thank you, sir. So let's take the last question. Actually, I am not understanding this question. This question is from my student from Ravenshaw University, Vidya Sagar. Vidyasagar, can you directly ask this question?
Sir, namaskar. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Patnaik sir, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Sir, my question is, you differentiate between a nation-based state and state-based nation, and Himanshu sir also simply elaborated it it means state-based nation means they endeavor for their political goals, and nation-based state means we endeavor for our cultural goals. Okay. Then my question is, there is no question remain for political goals in India remain, because if we uh, uh, pursue for cultural goal, then we need more literature for communicate among different culture. We don't need any state. We don't need any political goals. That is the question. So what is the purpose of this type of talk?
Oh, I got it. I got it. I got it. Sir,
State, state is
Patnaik sir, let me handle for some time, then I will give you. So thank you, Vidyasagar.
Yes, yes.
I mean, this nation-based state. Uh, I mean, here, nation is the goal. Nation is the end. Nation is not the means. And state-based nation means nation is a means. The end is the state. Yes, you are right. You are right. If the uh, destination or the orientation of the state is to develop the nation or nationalism, then I think we should revive our past literature, and we should rediscover it by interpreting, uh, interpreting in a way making it relevant for the today. So then only people can connect themselves with India's past. So I think I must agree with you that we should work out for literatures. We should connect people of different cultures, and then only I think nation-based state can be possible. I think I agree with you. Yes, Patnaik sir.
This is okay. So far as the state is concerned, you see, so far as our foreign affairs, defense, so far economic development, infrastructure, coordination, communication, it is necessary to have a government to promote the standard of the people, everything else. So far, when you talk about that was a nation, in larger perspective, the state has a least role. More role is there so far as the individuals are concerned, scholars are concerned, academics are concerned. For example, we have to promote our culture, we have to preserve our culture. It could be done. The state has also some role. It must that must help in cooperating. For example, 11 years back, there was one Madam Prime Minister of Australia. What is her name? Hillary. No, you can say, just I'm confusing. You can see the Google right now. 11 years back, the British lady Prime Minister. So what happened? One Imam demanded that a Shariat must be, that means Shariat means the rules and regulations governing the Islamic society must be based on Shariat. Clearly, she stated this thing could not, one Indian Prime Minister President won't venture. Our own intellectuals that must work like your hawks. What she replied? Protestant Christianity, Anglo-Saxon, and English. These three are the basics of Australia. You want to remain here, you remain here, or you get out. Anglo-Saxon, that means they are Anglo-Saxons, dynasty, so far as the race is concerned, race factor. Protestant Christianity, their religion, and English language. These are the basics of Australia. And the same is the terms of also entire Europe, so also America, elusively speaking. Elusively speaking. It happens in every country except India. For example, in no secular country of the world, there is another, that means civil code, as the Muslims are arranging from 1937, colonial age. There are so many aspects. Imams are given your salary in places like your Telangana and your Delhi. So many things are there. Here, in fact, we don't like that was to feel glorified regarding ourselves. Sanskrit, what is there to feel sulking, to glorify your Sanskrit literature? So it could be a long answer, I don't like to say. But just say nation and state, we must not do that. So we are using very loose words. For example, day before yesterday, Amartya Sen Nobel laureate stated because of the arrest of, what is the name of that lady? Sitalwal. Anyway, Gujarat. Indian nation has collapsed, he stated. Indian nation has collapsed. Indian system, you can say the police system, law and order, you can say the rule of law or anything else collapsed. How Indian nation is collapsed? We use very loose words in fact. Instead of state, we use definition. From Western perspective, we use the words. Therefore, there is confusion of Indian society.
So thank you, sir. Right now we are at the last part of this academic event. Now I request my PhD student Pritish Sharma to provide vote of thanks to our speaker. Pritish. Pritish, you have to unmute your audio. You can start.
Thank you, sir. It is my privilege to extend the vote of thanks on this webinar talk. I, on behalf of all the participants, extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. We have been fortunate to have a renowned personality and our today's guest speaker, Dr. D.D. Patnaik, sir, to take out time from his busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you, sir, for your words and inspiring us on the ideas of Indian culture and thought. Sir, your thought on decolonizing Indian mind towards political theories of Indian nation and Indian philosophy and patriotism, which is based on cultural based nationalism. Sir, it has really inspired us. India, which is having a heritage of culture, has no doubt what our culture has contributed to the world. Sir, you have clearly mentioned that it was the burden of the Britishers to change India. The Britishers have perhaps forgot that India has a history of more than 2 million, from the late Iron Age to modernity. Sir, your thought on British as decolonizing our minds by changing our tradition and imposing the westernized culture has somehow affected our culture, but Indian society is growing till now, and we have glory in our past. It is our practice and responsibility that will make and regain once again our Indian culture and thought to make a world once again of peace and secular. I also thanks to Sanjay Meher, Assistant Professor in Barampur University, for introducing the topic and giving the ideas on the topic. Thank you for joining the webinar. I thank to my research guide, Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra sir, who gave me the opportunity and scope to express my gratitude to this webinar. Thank you, sir. Without your effort, this webinar was not possible. Last but not the least, thanks to all the participants for attending the webinar. I once again thanks everyone for making this webinar successful. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Pritish. On behalf of all, I am also thankful to Dr. Patnaik. I think he has many things in his mind. He has written books on this topic, not one book, many books on this topic. And when many things are there in the mind, it becomes very difficult what to say, what not to say. But somehow he has tried his best to give us a sense of give us a sense on that how our mind is colonized, and the realization of it is actually the beginning or the starting point of decolonizing or decolonization. So thank you Patnaik sir. Now this is the end of this event. So sir, namaskar. Good night.